What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today we're talking about the Carolina Panthers and our season preview series. Hopefully you will enjoy today's video. If you do, be sure to hit that like button, it help me out a ton. If you're new around here, want to see the rest of the series and more football content in general, just hit that big red subscribe button and join me for a conversation down below in the comment section. What do you think about the Carolina Panthers? How many wins do you think this team can get? How big of an impact is that Baker Mayfield trade? Who are some X factors, not superstars, but true difference makers, and some games you're looking to watch this team play this year? Love to have your thoughts. I respond to just about every comment, so let's talk about Carolina in the comments section. Be sure to go back and check out the other videos in this series. You'll get a good idea of how I go about each section, but I'll also walk you through that as we move along. One more caveat before we fully dive into it. I did update the win range and my projected win total, just like I said I would in my way too early NFC South season predictions video, just for the impact that I think Baker Mayfield and the boost that is at the most important position in the sport, right? He is a substantial upgrade in my opinion over Sam Darnold. Now I'm not saying Panthers are going to the Super Bowl, but instead of a 2-win team, I could see him hitting that 6-win mark. So 5 to 8 wins feels about right. This is a team with a good defense. We'll kind of go position group by position group. So 5-12, certainly possible. And part of the reason I think, despite me liking a lot of the talent across the roster, Matt Rule, unfortunately, despite really winning me over in his presser, him and Joe Judge actually, after watching their press conferences, I was like, wow, these guys have sound like good NFL head coaches in the making. Both those have been misfire, so I'm never going to watch a head coaching press conference ever again. But that point aside, that, and then you got Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator. I like Phil Snow as the DC coming from Temple with Matt Rule, but McAdoo and Rule, those two holding so much power and two huge positions, head coach, OC, that kind of tempers my expectations a little bit. But like I said, Baker, a substantial upgrade over Sam Darnold. I love those wide receivers. DJ Moore he's just one of those guys I'm really biased towards. He's a really fun player for me to watch. Robbie Anderson's exciting. He just changed his name to IE, and that's cool or whatever, but big-time deep threat, good size, and as he's gone on in his career, he's been able to add some more wrinkles and more elements to his game, becoming closer and closer to a well-rounded wideout. And then also Terrence Marshall Jr. I know he didn't do a whole lot last year, wasn't all that impressive, but year two, I would expect he's going to be slightly better. Now, how much of the field does he see? What does Ben McAdoo have him up to? That will be interesting. But, yeah, I think Terrence Marshall Jr., I don't think we should give up on him just yet. The offensive line, you added Kim Aquanu with the number 6 overall pick. You signed an Austin Corbett. You get Bradley Bozeman on a fantastic 1-year, $2.5 million deal. That offensive line is, it's not the best in the league, but you're looking at that, and as long as the Kim Aquanu is solid as a rookie, which, that's a pretty sizable caveat, not a guarantee that rookie's going to hit the ground running, but if he's at least average to start, one, that's a huge financial surplus, right? Even just an average tackle makes a ton of money. So he's on a rookie deal, so surplus value for a team that's kind of hamstrung by the salary cap, at least this past offseason. But if a Kim Aquanu is solid, then I think that offensive line is a pretty decent unit and substantially improved from where they were last year. So it's kind of interesting. You look at the Dolphins, you look at the Bengals, you look at the Panthers, you look at these teams that really had some rough situations across the O-line. One offseason later, solid signings, and then, some splurges, whether it's, number 6 overall pick in a Kim Aquanu, big-time contract to Teron Armstead for the Dolphins, and next thing you know, it doesn't look all that bad. And then switching sides, again, I'm a huge fan of Phil Snow. I think he did a great job as a DC. Really confusing with his blitz packages, especially that Week 2 win against New Orleans. Like, that's a New Orleans team with a solid offensive line and plenty of other, outside circumstances that kind of might have cluttered up that week of preparation for New Orleans. But that being said, they had the Saints guessing left and right, and that was a really dominant showing for that defense. I was really impressed. But even without Hassan Reddick, Brian Burns is a guy I'm always going to be high on. I think he's kind of a superstar waiting to take that next leap forward. Now, right now he's probably a star, and I'm kind of waiting for him to take that superstar jump, kind of like people with Quinnen Williams too. I'm a little bit more optimistic maybe about Burns taking that superstar leap, but big fan of his. And we'll talk about the other edge rusher potentially starting on the opposite side. And this is a big year for Derek Brown. Kind of disappointed in year 2, showed some promise as a rookie. Year 3, does he kind of put it together and fully become the guy we thought he could be coming out of Auburn? If not, that's a tough miss right there, picking inside the top 10, going D tackle and it not work out. That's tough. Linebacking course, Jack Thompson is one of the most underrated players in the league, in my opinion. Such a solid player, nobody talks about, and part of it, Carolina hasn't been all that good, so he kind of gets swept under the rug. And then going to the secondary, we'll talk about C.J. Henderson later, but you get J.C. Horn back and healthy, hopefully at least. After his injury, he looked good right before that injury last year, which is really promising as a rookie corner, coming up and giving you good play right away. Don't always see that. Dante Jackson's back, and he's always kind of a player that I'm enamored by. Really twitchy, speedy corner, and good enough in coverage. Feels like a good playmaker. And then Jeremy Chin, this box safety type, and then you add an Xavier Woods. That kind of feels like the Bozeman signing just on the defensive side, where it's just a solid player. You're going to get capable starting options right there, and Xavier Woods, especially as that deep safety, complementing Jeremy Chin. Now I want to see him at the line of scrimmage or inside the box, playing close to the line of scrimmage around the first down stick marker. Those are the types of things I want to see. So it's going to be fun to watch that defense in specific, and that's kind of the side of the ball I think really kind of exceeds where this team really is record-wise. So 5 to 8 wins for the win range, 6 wins right now. That could totally change. I mean, Baker Mayfield with a chip on his shoulder, that can be scary. Like, we've seen him be petty, but now he has a legitimate reason to be angry, and I cannot wait to see what that turns into on the field. So realistic goal, hit that 8-9 win mark. If you hit 8 wins, this might not be the best thing for the organization, but that might be enough to keep Matt Rule's job. And if they go 9-8, winning record after everything they've gone through the last couple of years, that's going to look like a sizable step in the right direction and a turnaround. You're probably not moving on from Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo, but man, if this team hits that goal, that would be really exciting. And it's an NFC South where let's say they hit that 8-win mark, you're then putting yourself in a situation where maybe if you bring back Baker Mayfield, you keep those young pieces around. You've already extended guys like a DJ Moore, got to work out that Brian Burns extension, all that sort of stuff. Brady could be gone after this year. Who knows if the Saints gamble's going to work? It might take some time in Atlanta. Like, this team could be positioning themselves, depending on how the division shakes out. If they exceed expectations this year, they could become the front runner of the division in another year's time, maybe 2 years' time. So really fascinating. This NFC South and just in general is going to be, over the long term, really interesting to watch. And then reach goal, be the sneaky team that creeps in the playoffs, especially the NFC, right? Those 6-7 seeds are up for grabs. So if Carolina goes 9-8, really wouldn't surprise me if they're the 7th seed. I could see it, especially if maybe the Saints battle some injuries, and that takes away one of those teams I would presume would be in one of those 6 or 7 spots in the wild card race. If New Orleans is banged up, doesn't hit that playoff threshold, Carolina could totally be the team that sneaks into that. Again, depending on Baker Mayfield, that is a huge if. But hey, if we're getting second half of 2020 Baker with those wide receivers, yeah, I could see it happening. Now, again, I'm questioning Ben McAdoo as an offensive coordinator, but it's certainly possible. So now we'll move on from there, and let's hit on some X factors. And I have to say this in every video, but not superstars. Like I said, Brian Burns is a stud. DJ Moore is fantastic. I don't. Taylor Moton, one of the best right tackles in football. I'm not questioning those guys are going to be good because I just assume they are. X factors to me are those guys who, if they hit the high side of variance or exceed expectations, this team can do the same thing. Or if they fall short, then this team will ultimately fall short of their goals. So hopefully that's a quick, concise description of what I'm going for here. So Baker Mayfield, I won't drone on too long about this, but it's the most important position in football. It's a big-time upgrade over Sam Darnold, and now it probably keeps Matt Corral on the bench, at least for the first full year of his career, which is probably good for a guy very RPO-heavy over at Ole Miss. Chance to kind of really get his his toes into the water, so to speak, of that NFL offense, that playbook, and the speed of the game in and of itself. But Baker, big arm, very accurate, maybe a little one-speed type of guy. Maybe he needs to learn that touch ability and add a little bit more loft. But Duke can chuck it, which for me, I never understood why Robbie Anderson did want him there. That's a guy who can throw the deep ball a lot better than Sam Darnold. That feels like a combination waiting to create some big plays. And then also, like I said, the accuracy too. And Darnold's had his accuracy, inefficiencies throughout his career. And Matt Corral, there's no guarantee what he would look like as a rookie. So DJ Moore, he wins at a variety of levels, but that's got to be music to his ears. It may be coming in hot. It's strictly fastballs from Baker Mayfield, but more often than not, it's going to be on the money. So as long as he's healthy, too. That's the other big caveat here. Obviously, worst year of his career was last year, but he's playing with a torn shoulder, so I wouldn't expect a whole lot of guys to be looking pretty good there. So we all kind of know the Baker Mayfield situation. He is maybe the biggest X factor wild card going into next season. So let's see how it plays out for Carolina. Yetur Gross-Matos, a guy I really liked, a second-round pick. And right now, per our lads, he's the starting edge rusher opposite of Brian Burns, who I've already sung his praises. But Hassan Reddick was fantastic in a one-year deal last year. Reunion between the Temple guy and his coach, Matt Rule. But now with him in Philadelphia, who's going to be that edge rusher to step up and provide and give that production opposite of Brian Burns? Or if Yetur Gross-Matos is kind of quiet, doesn't hit expectations, is non-existent, a non-threat, Brian Burns is going to get double teams. He's going to get every chip, tight end, running back, however you want to write it up. But that dude's going to get so much in his direction, and that's going to take away his potential game-wrecking ability. I really think Brian Burns has that 15-sack type of potential and a guy who can take over a game late. But if there's nobody on the other side, forcing the offense to, account for that edge rusher, well, then they're just going to double and they're going to chip away at Brian Burns and take him out of the game, and it's going to get that much easier to try to pick apart that secondary, which I think is talented, but no edge rush. Give a quarterback time. They'll do it against any secondary. So Yetur Gross-Matos is going to have a career year. That, or they're going to have to bring another edge rusher, which, how many veteran edges really are still out there that you would want to bring in and you can guarantee are better than Yetur Gross-Matos? I can't think of any off the top of my head. So it's going to be a big year for Gross-Matos. Can he take that step forward? And then CJ Henderson, another guy that I'm waiting to see him take that step forward. Now, in his draft class, I think 2020, if memory serves, there were people, arguing and, making the case that he should be CB1 over Jeff Okudah. I never went that far. Neither one of us has been all that good, but that being said, I did like him a lot coming out of Florida. These, sticky man coverage, press corners, that ability, solid enough athlete. I tend to be really kind of biased to those guys. So he was definitely a prospect who, when he went in the top 10, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That works. I dig it. And, Jacksonville needed a corner at the time. But then, after being a top 10 pick, he gets traded off for a third-round pick and then gets injured, doesn't see the field a whole lot last year. Now he's got a full offseason, chance to work with Phil Snow, really get acclimated with his situation, that team, the locker room, all that fun stuff. And he does have one, big, plus and one big advantage heading this season. He doesn't have to be cornerback one, right? Like when he got drafted by Jacksonville, he was presumed CB1. Right now, J.C. Horn has got to be that guy, right? Like, you draft him at number 8 overall, right? And he looks really good last year before the injury. So it's probably going to be Horn drawing the number 1 assignments. And because of that, makes the life of C.J. Henderson a little bit easier. But no matter who he's, matched up against, we're just going to have to see him out of the field. And we got to see that first-round talent. We got to see it on display. We just haven't really seen any of that from C.J. Henderson. He had a couple picks, maybe just one in his first ever game with the Jags. But since then, when it comes to the turnovers, he's been quiet. So chance to kind of turn around his career, and you have a big year this year, you're probably, in line for second contract negotiations with Carolina, at least starting those talks. Maybe not finalizing it, but putting yourself in a position where that price tag is going to go up going into year 4. So big year for CJ Henderson, and if he does pan out and he does take that step forward, him and JC Horn on the outside, sticky man press coverage cornerbacks, man, Phil Snow with those guys on the outside is going to be able to do a ton when it comes to blitz packages, and it's going to make his life a whole lot easier. And Phil Snow can kind of emulate what Wink Martindale's been able to do in Baltimore, which, if you're a Panthers fan, that would be a dream come true. Some games to watch, then we'll get you out of here. Week 2 at the Giants. You'll see a common thread between all three of these games. I'm not super high on the Panthers. A little bit more optimistic now that they have Baker, but these are all very winnable games in my opinion, and I would still probably put Carolina in what I call the bottom barrel, that bottom quarter of the league, those bottom 8 teams. They're probably right there in maybe that 25-ish mark. We'll see when I do my updated power rankings, but the Giants definitely a team they can beat. This team also starts back-to-back years where the Panthers starting quarterback has had a revenge game week 1. Last year, it was Sam Darnold against the Jets. This year, it's Baker against the Browns, so the NFL schedule makers are on one, but I left that one off just because, the Browns are just a better team on roster. That's on paper. So that's going to be a tough one, despite it being an interesting revenge aspect to that game. But week 2 at the Giants, that's a winnable game. And that's going to be a fun one. Wink Martindale versus Phil Snow. 2 really solid defensive minds. How do they go toe-to-toe and against 2 quarterbacks that have had issues holding on to the ball? So, or ball security in general, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield. Which defense creates more turnovers? That's probably your winner right there, which, football 101. Then week 14, so we miss a chunk of the middle of the season, and I say this, and I have to reiterate it. I don't put division games on here. Every NFC South game is important for the Panthers, so obviously watch those games. Week 14 at Seattle, again, another winnable game on the road. That's always going to be a challenge. Cross-country trip, that's a difficult proposition, but again, Seattle, a team that's probably vying for potentially picking the top spot of next year's draft, if not 1, then top 3, top 5. So winnable game there for the Panthers, and especially one where DJ Moore could go crazy. This is a DFS play, early DFS pick for week 14. DJ Moore against that Seattle secondary. I'm all over it as of right now. So that's definitely a game where, Baker, deep balls to Moore, Robbie Anderson, I think could put Carolina in the winning column that week. And then week 16 against the Lions. I like the Lions roster maybe just a little bit more. The quarterback situation, Baker, probably I'd take him over, Jared Goff right now. Not probably, I would. But 2 teams that are, again, in the middle of a rebuild process. I'm a little more optimistic about the future outlook for the Lions, and I feel better about their surrounding, ecosystem around the quarterback and that, coaching staff in and of itself and the front office, more than where I'm at right now with Carolina, but 2 teams that are looking to pull themselves up from the bottom of the league and take that next step forward. So really interesting, and this could carry forward some interesting momentum into the offseason, right? If Detroit finishes hot, if Carolina finishes hot, there's going to be a lot of rhetoric around, hey, look, this team's starting to figure it out. One more offseason, a couple more pieces. This team's going to be in the playoff mix. So I think that's possible for both these teams. So winner of Week 16 will make for interesting offseason rhetoric. But that's going to do it for my Carolina Panthers season preview video. Tell me what you think about Carolina down below in the comments section. How many wins do you think they can get? How big of an impact does Baker make? Who are some X factors, not superstars, but X factors, and some games you're looking forward to seeing the Panthers play this year? Love to have your thoughts, and I respond to just about every comment. So let's talk about them down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It'll help me out a ton. If you're around here, want to see more sports content, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Until next time, my name is Siege. I'm signing off.